Since we're talking about being happy today, I have been very excited to meet some new people here today, and so I just want to note that this little piece of paper here comes right on off of this program that you have, and this is how we connect with you. So there were a couple of folks that I met, including somebody who used to come to camp with me, Shelby when she was a little girl. Go ahead and fill that out so I can have your contact information. We can have your contact information and get you acclimated in being new here. Some folks who aren't new here, I just want to pause and note, this stuff comes with the band, and they were just here a few days ago, and now they're back again, and aren't they amazing? Do we not have the most amazing band in all of Indianapolis? Thank you, Troy, and everyone. Wow, what wonderful gifts you share with all of us, and you change our lives. So today we're talking about happiness. And can we really buy happiness? Now, here's an admission of sorts. I make all kinds of admissions for ministers in this place. And this is usually joy hangover day for pastors. Lots of times pastors will take this day over because we got that baby Jesus birthed and we're moving on. And sometimes ministers are tired. And so if you don't have an associate, this is often the day that you invite the kids up. And you invite the kids up to share all the great gifts they received for Christmas. And it's amazing when you open yourself up to that kind of spirit, what happens in that time. Most often the kids are still pretty excited about what they received and very excited to tell you about it. You see that joy that he talks about in that video there, that joy of being a child and that experience of having something new and experiencing the joy of a gift. We then use that as an analogy to help us remember that the gift of the season is something for us to enjoy and to open every day, and the gift and the love of Jesus is something that we need to treasure just as these kids treasure these gifts. So in that same spirit, I'm going to ask you, did you get everything you wanted for Christmas? Now, I'm not going to ask you to come down and show me your new smartphone or whatever it is that you received. No droids, please. Is that what they're called? Whatever those hovered things are. Droids. Welcome to the day after Christmas. All those gifts you received, I really don't want to see them, but I want you to ask yourself that question. Did I get everything I needed, and are those material belongings making me happier? Are they making me happier? Now, when you look to the Bible for the word happiness, well, the one thing that you find is you don't find the word happiness. You find the word joy, you find the word delight. But when you also look at getting stuff, the Bible isn't good about getting stuff. The Bible somehow recognizes that, in fact, if we're trying to find delight, if we're trying to find joy, if we're trying to find satisfaction in life, it's most likely not going to be found outside, but indeed inside. Build that relationship from the inside out. The psalmist puts it this way. The psalmist says in Psalm 37, he says, "Delight yourself in God for the desires of your heart." So seek happiness in God for what it is that you want in your heart. Commit your way to God. Trust, and God will do this. God will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like a noonday sun. Be still before God and wait patiently. So building that relationship will bring you this happiness. Will you pray with me? Lord, help us to become masters of ourselves, that we might be the servants of others. Take our minds and think through them, our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire. Amen. Benjamin Wallace is a freelance writer who did an article for GQ some time ago about buying happiness. TED Talks picked up on this, and I encourage you to go see Benjamin Wallace's TED Talk on happiness, because it's really a profound talk about if money can indeed buy us happiness. He's written a book called Billionaire's Vinegar. It's about this wine, the most expensive wine that belonged to Thomas Jefferson or something, and it's a really fascinating story that I encourage you to check out. But on GQ's bill, Benjamin Wallace had the opportunity to go out and to sample the finer things in life and determine if, in fact, it could bring him happiness. He started by eating Kobe beef, not our fake stuff, but the real deal, at $160 for an 8-ounce ribeye. He said it was pretty miraculous. He also had a glass of wine from a bottle of wine that cost about $1,700, the Cheval Blanc, and he said it was pretty good. He then went out and slept on a $40,000 mattress, but he had to do it in the showroom because they wouldn't let him bring it to his house. He also had an opportunity to visit. They would not pay for it, but he had the opportunity to visit a hotel room that was 4,300 square feet. It came with its own wine cellar and a Rolls Royce, a driver, and your own personal butler, all for a mere $30,000 a night. As he shared in the talk, he wore jeans, fine Zimbabwean hand-loomed jeans dipped 24 times in indigo at the cost of $400. He was invited to golf with a set of golf clubs that cost $57,000. But when they discovered he didn't really golf, they suggested that perhaps he should not do that. One of my favorite stories from Wallace's talk was about the olive oil. There's this guy named Armando Manni. He's a former filmmaker that lives in Tuscany, and he has an olive landscape, a slope in Tuscany, that he grows the finest olives, and he goes to great lengths to make sure that this olive oil is by far the best, finest, and most expensive olive oil you can buy. He measures the oxygen and the light and the soil, and he does all kinds of things, and you have to put your name in to buy this, and you can watch your olives grow online. I don't know, it's some ridiculous, like $140 an ounce or something for this olive oil. Wallace got his hands on some of this olive oil, so he decided to do his own little tasting party with some friends. 20 of his friends, 5 different olive oils. He said, he put them all out there and in the end discovered that this olive oil was pretty good, he guessed. It was kind of peppery and tasted green and fresh. But in the taste test, it came in absolutely last. It was a blind taste test. What won was a bottle of Whole Foods no-name olive oil that had been on his shelf for at least 6 months, and everybody seemed to love it. Wallace's little independent study backs up research. Research shows that if our mind knows something is more expensive, our taste buds lose their spot, and our minds take over. And something that may not really taste all that good, we suddenly think tastes fantastic because it's more expensive. It's seen quite often in wine tastings, blind wine tastings. It's seen quite often in different situations. If you do something blind, the taste buds win. But if it's not blind and you know how much it costs, oftentimes the mind overtakes that. Nell Levy is a neuroscientist who studies happiness and what makes us happy. And the result of his study is also quite interesting. In some cases, yes, indeed, money can buy you happiness, but it has nothing to do with the finer things in life. See, if you don't have enough to live, following Maslow's hierarchy of life and order, if you don't have enough to live, a place to eat, or a place to live, enough to eat, care for your family and security, chances are you are not going to be happy. But if you reach that place where you can find a sense of security, people do find happiness. But it's only going to that place. When you go beyond that place, sure, happiness comes along with the things that we want and that society tells us we need. But when the pendulum swings the other way and you have vast amounts of money, oftentimes you have the same anxiety as those who have nothing at all, because you worry about losing what you have. You worry and you get concerned about losing all this money. So isn't it interesting that on both ends of the spectrum, yeah, you really can't buy happiness, but you can't live without enough to live. You can't find happiness either. Interesting. Interesting to me that we have neuroscientists and we have blind taste tests and we have a variety of different things going on in the world today that really backs up what the Bible and the psalmist and the desert fathers and the great wisdom teachers have been telling us all our lives. And that is, the fact is, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. Bhutan is a small Buddhist kingdom on the edge of the Himalayas in South Asia. In 2010, they decided to deviate from the traditional measures of a country's success. You know, the gross national product, the GNP, still very important to us here in the United States. In Bhutan, they decided to change that measure to the GNH, or the gross national happiness. They've been doing this since about 2010, and in the past 5 years, they have been able to determine that 91.2% of the population define themselves as narrowly, extensively, or deeply happy. Now, something tells me in a country like ours, where our gross national product is pretty high, if we were to ask those in the United States that exact same question, I'm not sure we would come up with 91.8%. This statistic was not lost on our Surgeon General. His name is Vivek Murthy, who studies health and well-being of Americans, which of course is on the minds of a lot of Americans now in the midst of healthcare and the variety of different things going on. Not only are we a nation that struggles with a variety of different healthcare concerns, but we struggle with paying for it and how we're going to work in life to be happy and healthy people. And our Surgeon General, whose job it is to ensure that we are healthy people, believes that we need to start doing something to make sure that happens. And it's not have the right health insurance policy. In fact, it doesn't involve smoking that much anymore or those kind of things. He believes we need to start focusing on happiness and how it is that we can achieve happiness that costs us really nothing except a little bit of time and energy. He cites a case of a school in San Francisco. This school was at the bottom of the barrel when it came to test scores and truancy and violence. And it was a community that was really, really struggling. And the school tried a variety of different things to make it work. They finally brought in counselors. In fact, those counselors determined they needed grief counselors. Grief counselors came in, they looked at the whole of the community, and they determined the community needed to really be transformed in amazing ways. And it didn't have anything to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. It had everything to do with making connections with the kids, learning about one another, making that connection. It had something else to do with creating time to be still. They created a time for meditation in the morning, 15 minutes, and in the afternoon, 15 minutes. They created an opportunity for kids to participate in physical activity. And they also encouraged them to be thankful, to be mindful of what it was that was working in their lives, to pause and to give thanks for that. They called them gratitude exercises. Vivek Murthy said, that's our key. It doesn't have a thing to do with your health insurance plan. It doesn't have a thing to do with the prescriptions you're on. It doesn't have a thing to do with any of those things. It has everything to do with you and you taking control. He says happiness is a perspective that everyone can create it for themselves with 4 simple, free approaches. If you didn't know what Vivek looks like, there he is. I haven't seen much of him. Gratitude exercises, meditation, physical activity, and social connectedness. He says, in the midst of all of the challenges we're dealing with healthcare and a variety of different things, he believes that these are the 4 steps that will help people live longer, be less stressed, and have lower levels of inflammation and heart disease. I don't know about you, but I think it sounds like a pretty good plan. The late Harold Kushner, a Jewish rabbi, writes about a time that he was on vacation with his family. He was sitting on the beach and he saw these two little kids near the water's edge building this elaborate, amazing castle with moats and turrets and towers and all kinds of passageways. They worked hours on this thing. Well, you probably can figure out what happened. The tides started coming in slowly, 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 and eventually the whole thing was just wiped away, washed out over by water. There was nothing left but a pile of wet sand. Kushner says he thought at this moment that these kids would just break out in tears and be overwhelmed, that all of their work was gone just like that. But what he discovered was very, very different. Instead, the kids started laughing, holding hands, and they ran up the shore away from the water. And guess what? Sat down to build yet another sandcastle. He concluded with this observation: I realized that they had taught me an important lesson. All the things in our lives, all the complicated structures we spend so much time and energy creating, are built on sand. Only our relationships to others endure. Sooner or later, the wave will come along and will knock down what we have worked so hard to build. When that happens, only the person who has somebody's hand to hold will be able to laugh. Happiness, friends, it is an inside job. And as we are in the dawn of a new year, I wish you joy, love, and happiness from the inside out. Amen.